Hello, welcome to Just Join the Channel and our today's special streaming with my guest from Digital Hub Warsaw. My name is Michał and I will be your host today. But today it's not about me, not this time at least, but as about mentioned, Digital Hub Warsaw. And we will talk about what is the common factor for Digital Hub Warsaw, a lot of hubs today, and plant breeding, the role of crop science, how it supports agriculture. And as you can see with me, I have three guests, Michał Karwacki, Kamil, Homernik, and Edna, Navarro. And if you can go with a short round of introduction, let's start from Michał.
Hello, hi everybody. My name is Michał Karwacki. I am a software engineer at Digital Hub Warsaw at Bayer. I joined February this year. Previously, I have around a little bit more than a decade of software engineering experience on my record, working for different companies from consumer electronics, financial institutions, job portals, and finally joined the hub to work on crop science that we'll be speaking about. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you as well. Thanks for that. Kamil, if you can take it from here.
Sure. So I'm Kamil. I'm software engineer with several project management certifications. Previously, I was working in game dev industry, and now it's time for crop science.
Thank you. In a minute, I'll ask you what's actually crop science, because it's a pretty new term for me. But before that, Edna, if you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Edna Navarro, and I'm an enterprise product manager in under Velocity Materials under Pipeline. And so I started my career about 10 years ago working in startups and worked through different industries such as healthcare, financial education, and now agriculture. And I've been at Bayer for about 4 years now and here with you all today.
Cool. Thank you for that. Good to meet you, all of you. So let me ask the very bold question. What is actually crop science? Like, assume that I have no idea what it is. Who can pick it up?
I can start with
I
can start with theory. So the bottom line is to harvest more with less water, land, and energy, so less resources. And because of things like climate change and extreme weather conditions, for example, this task is even harder than a few years ago. There is drought in some part of the world and, for example, flooding in others. So the task of crop science and technology is to find the most optimal way, the most efficient ways to plant crops and to grow them. It's a very basic description.
Yeah, and I think I'd agree with that too. It's modernizing the way we grow food and just sustainable practices as we continue to progress, I think, as a civilization. So I definitely agree with Kamil's statements.
How I should think about that? Is it a service? Is it a technology? A set of technology? Maybe Michał?
Yeah, I can say a few words about it this time. So as I understand it, and by the way, it's also new to us, right? Because we've just joined this organization and are starting to work on that. So more and more uncovers in terms of what it is, what role does it play, and how technology connects with agriculture. Because like usually you don't, when you think about agriculture, you don't connect it to modern technology, doing microservices, data-driven applications and stuff like that. but when thinking about crop science, it goes all the way through things like laboratory and analytical science work in terms of finding out how to mix different plants and crops with each other to produce new kinds of crops and plants that are better suited for conditions mentioned by Kamil a while ago, like different weather and different geographical location and different basically requirements of farmers. But obviously these days you wouldn't be able to do it efficiently without the involvement of things like advanced data science, AI, and this and stuff similar to that. And then finally, obviously it also comes into the area of software development, the thing that we software developers, programmers are busy with in our everyday job in other industries as well. So here we also need a lot of services, applications, both web as well as mobile, UX, UIs to support all of the process of production of new kinds of plants, crops, supporting farmers, not even mentioning things like IoT, Internet of Things, that help like physically on the fields.
That sounds like a platform which has multiple entries involved, multiple users. Oh, this is the good one. Who will actually use it? Like you mentioned some devices, you mentioned some IoT, you mentioned the people who actually grow plants. I don't know how we call them in your domain, but who will use the system, the platform?
I have asked this question, Edna, like a few months ago, so so maybe Edna will repeat this answer.
So
Oh, I
who
was
will use it?
okay.
Who will use the platform?
I can go ahead as I've practiced with Kamil several times when he started. So there are different within the life cycle of a product that we own, whether that be seed or otherwise. There are different personas that touch the technologies at different stages of that life cycle. So it can be from scientists that are creating trials to test a product. They're breeders, they're planners, they're researchers, data analysts, all the way up to farmers. So because we build technology or software through that whole stage of that life cycle, it can be any of those personas depending on which products or what problem we're trying to solve. So all the way from whoever is has that idea for a certain product all the way down to who's actually planting it and harvesting it from the field. So a great span of users.
Yeah, it sounds like a domain is pretty complex, and the amount of boundaries and context is also pretty much. And as developers, it's a good question to Michał and Kamil. What challenges do you face while working while working in the project?
Many.
Yeah. Kamil, do you want? Okay, cool.
I can start with some. So first of all, we are talking about very big scale of our like applications. So everything our application does, even if we are talking about laboratory or field, we are talking about like hundreds of 100,000 of entries of data. And in my case, if we are talking about printing labels using for like small packets for the seeds, we are talking about like hundreds of thousands label printed. So currently for us, the biggest challenge is to how to handle this amount of data in the application, which should be small, should be flexible, should work maybe even offline. So yeah, we have a lot of questions to ourselves about how to solve it. I know that Michał has a different experience, so it will be good to know his opinion.
Yeah, we've actually talked about it with Kamil previously. And I am working in a team in the part of the process that takes care of planning. So you have to imagine and realize that like crop is also a product, like products in other industries that we all can think about. But the crucial difference is that a plant has to grow, right? So it's not like you can develop a new plant each month or even each year, right? When you create a crop and plant it and it grows, you have to wait for it. So the better you plan it, the more certain you can be that everything goes well. And I am working in a team that works in this planning area of crop science. So we are responsible to deliver interfaces for the users, which are like analysts, laborants, farmers, who use it to carefully plan how to mix seeds, how to plant crops, and how to grow plants, how to treat them, so that everything can be very carefully planned. So there is no chance of mistake happening on the way, or the chances of mistakes, because they always happen in terms of growing new kind of seed or growing a seed that you need or plant that you need, so that the chances of those mistakes are minimal. So, and this was like the question, I think the original question was, what is the biggest challenge for us as software developers? So you have to imagine the scale, right? The product life cycle is like a couple of years, not months or days. You cannot release a thing like the next day. You have to wait for results. You have to plan it very carefully. Each of that has to be connected with really strict processes. There is also regulations involved in terms of law and stuff like that. So you have to like think very carefully about what you deliver and provide to the end users to meet the requirements and requirements of all the other things like law regulations and stuff, so that it all in the end connects and plugs into the processes of seed production in the right and correct way. So scale and number of involved services, people, personas, data.
For me, it was the biggest surprise when I joined. Yeah, sure. So thank you. For me, it was the biggest surprise when I joined this company, that the scale is very, very large. So the amount of technology we use, I believe we have like a lot of even JavaScript frameworks. We have machine learning technologies. We have, what else? Application for drone, which is flying around the field and scanning the soil condition. Yeah, we are doing, or our colleagues basically are doing a lot of things.
I have a good question about that. How do you organize team structure in such a big project as crop science? Because you mentioned that there are really a lot of fields, a lot of perspectives from which you can take a look at it. You have drones, you have some data processing, you have AI. How do you organize yourself to work over that level of complexity?
I can chip in. Sorry, please go on, Edna.
Please.
Yeah, so I can give my 2 cents. I think I feel like definitely my own manager in leadership can answer that a little more in detail than I can. But for at least my teams, what's well understood is the pieces in which you're trying to manage, right? So, for example, in the team that I work with Kamil, we've identified ourselves as the we've identified ourselves as a team called identification, and that's going to be our focus area, right? And so another team that my overall team, I should say, that I work with is material handling. So it's really working with any applications that work specifically towards handling of the material, whether that be in the warehouse or people trying to use it for other things, trying to split it, trying to ship it, trying to locate it and find where it is in a given facility. So when we think about what it is or how we try to structure ourselves within that environment, we try to first say, is this within our given area? And then from there, we say, what problem are we trying to solve within that area? And if we have a solid understanding of that, then we can figure out ways to accommodate that. And I think what's been really helpful working here is that your imagination as to what you want to do isn't limited, so long as it's trying to actually solve the problem at hand. So I think overall, it's making sure that whatever you have in front of you, as far as a problem statement and the team you work with, the resources that are allocated to you, is going to actually be, at the end of the day, what area you're in and what problem you're trying to solve for our users.
Someone else would like to chime in about the team structure? I'm really curious how it works in your field.
Yeah, like I've said, I can maybe say something, as this was or still is a particularly interesting topic for me, because as was spoken previously, Michał, I have some managerial experience as well, and like latest trend or approach in building teams and products in IT in modern companies, and especially those bigger ones, is, I think, to give the teams a lot of empowerment to work and fully own solutions that they build, right? And this is what I've found in DHub and generally at Bayer, in the meaning that we know our requirements, we have contact, we can contact our users, we have regular knowledge sharing sessions with them. We know what are the processes that have to be followed, thanks to people around us that support us in that, with that, like product managers and product specialists. And then finally, as software developers, knowing all of that and having all of this input as requirements, generally we are free to do whatever in terms of software development that meets those requirements and efficiently works together and well enough with other parts of the system that there is multiple of. So there is multiple teams around like mine, and everybody can work in a like set of technologies and in a given tech stack, trying out new things and realizing those requirements. So there is a lot of freedom. We can do whatever we want in terms of technology to deliver. At the same time, it's worth to follow some established patterns and standards, because there is a lot of developer tooling provided around that makes your job easier. So if I am developing a service, I probably do it with technology X because there is a boilerplate and a template to develop a service with that already plugs into some of the systems that provide things like authentication, connection to event buses and data streams and stuff like that. So we build it ourselves using developer tools that are around. but we have a lot of freedom with what we choose. That also connects a little bit with what Kamil said previously about that there is a lot of frameworks in use around, because depending on the requirement, sometimes we use a little bit different things.
So this is pick your own tool and use the right tool for right job approach.
I would say so, yeah.
Makes totally sense. I wanted to ask you, will crop science be project open for integrations, like from other parties, from partners, or is it a closed platform? Maybe Edna?
Yeah, so it is open to third partners for integration. I believe there are existing pieces of our software that do have some parts of integration to it. I think the only thing that we're limited to in that sense is maybe some sensitive data that is proprietary to our company. So there are definitely precedents to integrations that we currently have. And I think as long as we're meeting a certain need, or users have asked for it, or if it overall makes sense, to Michal's point, as long as we're figuring out a solution for a user, the sky's the limit to what we achieve here. So there is definitely some of that.
Got it. If I may ask you a question from the title of our meeting, so what is the common factor for Digital Hub and plant breeding? Michał, if you can take it, or Kamil?
I can start.
Go on, please.
Common factor between Digital Hub and plant breeding is that crop science and generally plant breeding and digital support of farmers and the things that we've talked about so far. This is currently the biggest, I think, focus area of the hub. So most of our engineers are probably working in crop science, and there is a lot of connections between people working for the hub in Warsaw and our colleagues across the globe. I think that we mostly have engineers working in States and in Germany. So this is where we mostly connect, and this is where we try and transfer knowledge from to the hub in Warsaw to build teams and solutions efficiently here. So the common factor is the domain and products that we develop and that we help develop, and solutions that we are required to do in terms of requirements coming from the users. I hope that this answers your question somehow.
So is the Digital Hub focused only on the crop science, or it is broader?
Not only, Bayer has other areas as well, but go on, Kamil.
Yeah, in Warsaw, in Digital Hub, we have also pharma departments, but as Michał mentioned, the crop science, I believe, is the biggest one currently. So yeah, that's the main goal, I think, for now. But talking about common things, I would add like challenges which crop science brings to us, and also in DHub we are trying to solve the, as you mentioned before, Michał, we have a lot of challenges regarding like our team structures, communication on the bigger scale. So I think like solving the problems in the creative way is the common thing and common goal of both crop science and Digital Hub.
Fair. Thank you for that. I have a question. If I would like to know more about the crop science and Digital Hub itself, where should I go? Can I visit you somehow? In Warsaw. In Warsaw, so let me ask Michał about that.
Yeah, sure. So, like the easiest way to connect and know more about the hub itself is through our social media channels. Probably I would start with LinkedIn. By the way of that, and thanks to that, you will find out on LinkedIn that we have open days happening at our office. So you can come like from outside and visit, even meet some of us, talk, see what we are doing. I think that even the drone is being presented on the open days, so you can see the drone. Apart from that, in terms of crop science, I would also start with LinkedIn, because like official buyer profiles, I think that there is even a profile dedicated to crop science specifically, has a lot of information about it, and also the buyer main web page has a lot of resources.
So for last few years, a lot of us, a lot of developers, a lot of people from our industry moved to remote work. So I'm really curious how it went with the hub. Are you all working from the office? Do you have a remote working culture? How it works in your case? Kamil, if you can pick it up.
Yeah, thank you. So in my case, I'm not based in Warsaw. I'm living in Gdańsk, and well, as you can see, Bayer and Digital Hub are open for remote work. We have meetings in Warsaw, so we are trying to, to communicate with our colleagues, but we have colleagues in Gdańsk, in Krakow, and in Warsaw. So yeah, on daily basis, we are communicating online.
How do you spread knowledge in such an organization? You mentioned that the domain is pretty big and pretty complex, at least as far as I understand. So sounds like knowledge sharing and spreading the knowledge to be on the same page is pretty crucial, especially here. How do you do that? How do you do it? This is the question.
So I'll give
Edna?
a little information. When, for example, Kamil started on Tatooine, we have a few tools to share just information. So we have something like called Haystack, and then our own our intranet that we have a whole bunch of information on, different videos and things like that. And then otherwise, we have a very open culture of sharing information. So one of the things I've found that's been different here is that there's no gatekeeping of information. So part of that, I think, reason is because there's so much to learn, that if you were to gatekeep your information, it would keep people from knowing anything. I don't think anyone I don't know. It's so large, and because there are, groups that sometimes you might not even talk to, that you can reach out and ask for information. And for the most part, there are going to be people willing to help you. And so with Tatooine, for example, it was a combination of using some of those software tools that we have, such as Miro, Mural, other things like AHA that we use for our product management. So it's a combination of all of those factors. And then because we're all in different places, it's not like we have a whiteboard in front of us, right? If you ask Kamil, he knows I'm a fan of virtual boards. And so using things like that to just share the information you have and making sure that you can share a lot of that virtually. I know when I have questions about the business side of things and those specific science questions, right? Understanding trait integration and just line advancement and things like that, I reach out to the appropriate users, and they're always willing to help me with any kind of PowerPoints or documents that they have, and even review it all with me. So I think it's a combination of asking the right people and finding what resources are out there. But Kamil, keep me honest and let me know if that's been your experience so far.
Thank you. Yeah, I can do a follow-up here. So basically, we have two types of knowledge sharing. So first, which Edna mentioned, is this crop science related knowledge, when we have to learn about how it works. For us, which we are not a native English speakers, we had to learn all the words related to crop science. But on the other hand, we have our community of software engineers in Warsaw, very very healthy community to keep us updated, like what's going on from the technical side in DHub. And I think we have like regular bi-weekly meetings. It helps us to create this big picture view, how it works from technical perspective, and just keeps us updated about the technology side.
What's the scale of the organization? Like, how many people is working on the project? Michał, can you take it?
I can try. I wanted also to add something in terms of knowledge sharing, but I can speak about it later. In terms of scale, I can only say that like a team consists mostly of between probably 4 up to, I don't know, 8, 10 people, depending also if you include product managers. In most cases you do. If you include UX designers, and you have to imagine that there's like, I'm not sure if I am like allowed to provide you with a specific number, but you have to imagine that there is a lot of those teams, like really a lot. One number that we can for sure share is that I think that just last month or something like that, we've crossed, and it was also advertised on LinkedIn, we've crossed the magical number of 200 employees at DHub. And again, this is mostly data science and software engineering. And this is just a fraction of what is around over the globe. And in terms of teams supporting the processes and parts of the crop science workflow that we've mentioned before. So it's huge, the scale is huge. And this connects directly to what we've been talking about, knowledge sharing. When I started in February, like the organization, DHub, it develops, I would say, every week, not even month, I think every week, in the meaning that when I've started, the software development community was much smaller than today, obviously, because there was less people employed, and we had to try our best at connecting with mostly states, especially for crop science, because we have most of our colleagues working from states, to transfer knowledge and build this community here in Warsaw to allow for knowledge sharing in our time zone as well. What helped me greatly, and what was a surprise for me that I don't think I've seen in other corporations that I worked for, is the level of quality of documentation. Because we have this huge portal which contains all the needed information about the technology that we are using, the developer tools that are available for us, and it's actually quite easy and convenient to connect the dots and go through all the needed documentation from point to point if you want to build something, finding all the information that you need. And then, like Kamil mentioned, if somebody has troubles finding something or doesn't know about something, then the more advanced colleagues or colleagues that are just working a little bit longer in the hub help them. Basically, we help ourselves by exchanging this knowledge on those community meetings mentioned by Kamil. So it all spreads quite well, I would say, the knowledge, and the scale is being somehow mitigated.
Nice. Sounds really good that you're aware of that. The problem of scale is indeed hard to handle. The scale of not even data, but the scale of people and the scale of organization. I wanted to ask you about one thing. Let's for a moment get back to technology-related topics. Kamil, if I can ask you, what were those top technology-related things that you like the most in the project, and how it can be, and if it can be even compared to your prior experience?
I believe it can be compared, but one of the biggest maybe challenge and surprises for me was that our application, talking specifically about our team right now, our application is used in many different locations around the world. So North America, South America, South Africa even. And the app itself sounds to be relatively simple. But if we add the location and different cultures to this equation, it's getting a little bit more complicated. As I mentioned at the beginning, I think. So our users in South Africa doesn't have that good connection to the internet. So we can just, so for something which will work for our users in the US, for example, will not work for other locations. So that's the challenge also for us, that we have to think about again this global scale and how to support different users, different locations with different needs. So yeah, I will talk about the fact that we should handle things like this and offline approaches maybe.
Despite of technological challenges and just fun with playing with a technology, do you feel mission related with what you do at crop science project, with what you do at the Digital Hub? If we can go a quick round, maybe let's start with Edna.
Yeah, so I think I should point out that I'm not based out of the hub. I am based out of the St. Louis office, but I live in Puerto Rico. So I think one of the things that I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? I lost track of what I was saying.
Yeah, no worries. Do you feel the mission of the crop
Yes,
science?
okay.
And what is the mission of your
So-
job here?
Yes. Okay. So repeating that, what I just said, I think because I'm based out of a different area and then speaking to like you and to Kamil and Michał, I think speaks volumes to the kind of mission that we have, because we do work at a global scale, and the kind of impact that we have on that global scale is huge. Because I think with other companies, at least that I've worked at, there obviously is impact and repercussions to what you're doing. But I think when we're talking about a company like Bayer that does have agriculture, pharma, and consumer health, I think we're talking about people's lives and their ability to take care of their families and provide for their families and things like that. So at a global scale, when you go to work in the morning, I think part of the thing that I know that I keep in the back of my head is what I'm doing is helping people get food on their table, or or making sure they're able to make it to the next day. So I think at an impactful, or the kind of impact that we have is definitely large, and that's what I think about on a day-to-day basis.
I can feel it. I can definitely feel it. Michał, Kamil, if I may ask you the very same question.
So what Edna just described is just starting to appear to me. So like I've mentioned previously, the scale that you can feel through applications, processes, amount of data, this is a translation of the scale of the company itself and what it does, where it operates, the global strive to provide food and better crop science to support the things that we've mentioned at the beginning of our talk, like more difficult environmental situation, things that are currently happening all over the world that are maybe not that great, and we have to accommodate for them and be prepared for them, right? So this works in terms of my imagination and in terms of my feeling of where I'm working and what my job supports. But then it goes into like layers of the impact. Yeah, this is the word, impact, that you can feel and provide, right? Because like the scale makes it so that when you speak or act or do something, you either feel something happening or moving, or somebody listening and reacting. This also relies a little bit to what Edna talked about, but when you bring it down to the level of being a programmer and software engineer, like the better you help your colleagues, the better your applications will be. The better your applications and solutions will be, the better and with more quality the processes and all the things can be supported. And then it translates to how much, like to be very strict here, how much, I don't know, crop can be grown on a piece of land, right? Which becomes more and more interesting, more and more important in the nearest past and future. So yeah, it's quite easy to feel the huge mission, even maybe burden of that.
Thank you for that, Michał. Kamil, what's your take on that?
Very similar. I was actually, before I start working here, I was looking for a company which could have impact on the environment and industry. And I think it wouldn't be a surprise that we as software developers, engineers, are getting a lot of job offers. And I was, just looking for something specific, something interesting. And now, after a few months here in Bayer, I can definitely say that this company has goal, has impact, and it's good to be part of it.
Cool.
If I
Great
can
to
just
hear
add
that.
one last thing, I think
Sure.
as an example of this, I think so. When around the time Kamil started, right, one of the things that we encourage is people to ask why. So why am I building this? Why am I building it that way? What problem is this trying to solve? And when Kamil started, because I'm speaking towards Kamil because we're on the same team. So one of the things he asked me in that specific application is why does this need to be on a packet, or why does this need to exist? And when I explained the scale, I think it surprised him, and also kind of Kamil, you can tell me no, but scared him a little, because I said, yeah, they're printing hundreds of thousands of packets in just one season for this specific crop. If we don't do this, then they can't do any of that, and they can't plant. And when they can't plant, then just talking about the ripple effects that happen after that, because agriculture is driven so much by planting seasons, which I think is very different from other industries, because you can have, I think in my experience, you have just annual deliverables, things like that. You don't have the very strict guidelines of I need to deliver by this time, because if I don't, then I can't plant in the field. And if I can't plant in the field, I have to wait a whole other year before I can do that again, because we have to work within our environment. So I think just the impact, I think, speaks very loudly when people are here for a few days and then they start asking why, and then they can really start to feel it, because then they have those additional details.
So it's not only impact, but it's also responsibility, as you mentioned.
Yep.
So yeah. And one more thing I want to mention, that the team is looking for new people, and you'll find information about the open positions on Just Join It. But really quick question to you, team. Who are you looking for? What positions are actually open, and what kind of people? Who do you would like to work with?
As we mentioned before, we have so many tasks to finish, tasks to do, mission to accomplish, so to say. We started our interns program recently, so our office is open for people who are just starting in the IT industry, through middle developers and seniors, team leads, etc. So everyone, literally everyone.
I guess that we got it. Thank you very much, Michał. Thank you very much, Kamil. Thank you very much, Edna, for these conversations. Thank you for watching us, and see you next time. Hey, I almost forgot. If you would like to check how crop science works in practice, check out the video.
At Bayer, we are shaping the future of agriculture. When we challenge what hasn't been done, we discover the science of what is yet to come. Our mission is to help farmers around the world get more out of every acre and grow more with less. In Marana, we're doing just that. A dream made reality in the Arizona desert, where we are growing acres of corn sustainably under glass. Our process all starts with seed selection. As a company, we're working to find the seeds with the genetics farmers want. In the past, this meant growing millions of seeds in open fields around the globe to find the best of the best. Today, however, we take a small chip out of the seed in our facility in Iowa and analyze the DNA to find the right seeds. Knowing what we're planting before we plant it means we're saving limited resources like land, water, and energy. When the best seeds are identified, they are shipped here to Marana. We've already invested a lot in each seed, and each seed is unique, so it's vital that we keep track of every single one using advanced automation and data. That starts from the moment the seeds arrive and are planted into a germination tray. From there, the seeds are set to grow in a climate-controlled chamber. The chamber includes customized lighting and temperature, giving the seeds everything they need to get the best start in life. Next, a robot takes a look at every seedling and decides if it's ready for the next step, its own pot. Now that our baby corn have their own pots, they are headed out to the greenhouse. Here, automation does some heavy lifting to move the entire bench of freshly transplanted corn out to the greenhouse, where it will live for up to 4 months. Now our plants are ready for the next step, pollination. Here, we will be combining the best genetics to create resilient corn. This is a part of the process robots can't do. This is where art and science come together in plant breeding. Pretty soon, the corn will be ready to harvest. Again, it's another area where people are a must. We carefully husk and shell each corn ear and make sure every seed is handled with care. Each seed is important and on its way to the next step, a field somewhere around the world to evaluate, select, and eventually grow enough to fill orders for farmers both big and small across the globe. And as we help those farmers to conserve our natural resources, at Bayer Marana, we set the example. We recapture and reuse our water, a precious resource here in the desert Southwest. And we're proud to say that stalks, cobs, and discarded soil will be composted and reused. At Bayer Marana, we are the example of progress, challenging the impossible and using science and imagination to deliver innovative solutions to shape the future of agriculture.